Good morning, everybody. It's Pastor John coming to you with another edition of Monday Morning Quarterback. Today I'm recording this from our annual conference meetings in Palm Springs, so that's why you don't see my office around me. I'll be back there next week. So yesterday we talked about how Jesus at the Last Supper in John's Gospel promised the disciples that he would be giving them the Holy Spirit sometime in the future. He didn't say when, he didn't say how. He just said that this would be a gift that he would give them, and it would help them to understand and have wisdom and knowledge and strength and all those things. And the question that we were talking about in the sermon is, why did he have to wait? Why can't they just have the Holy Spirit then, in that moment? Maybe it could have helped them survive the crucifixion, etc. Now, what we talked about in the sermon was essentially the fact that there are certain things in our life that we must prepare ourselves for, that we must be ready for. And Jesus needed the disciples to be a little bit more seasoned, if you will, before they were to receive the Holy Spirit. And so it was this sort of, I talked about how the Holy Spirit is sort of a now and not yet thing, Holy Spirit is with us always. In fact, it's always calling us towards God. It's what Methodists call prevenient grace. God is always at work in our lives, basically calling us towards God. We can, we have total freedom whether or not we're going to accept that, but God is at work. So the Holy Spirit is already with us in some sense. But there's also a not yet component to this, to where as we advance in our faith journey, we do become sort of more infused with an experience of the Holy Spirit, with knowledge of the Holy Spirit. Maybe it's even access to the Holy Spirit. So the question is, why is that necessary? Why is that time of preparation, etc., necessary? And I'll share that with you using this illustration. Not too long ago, my wife and I were talking about how we married in 2002. We started dating in 2001, but we'd been in each other's orbit, similar churches and everything like that, since about 1986, and we never seemed to meet. And so once recently, I was lamenting to her, it's like, wouldn't it have been great if we could have met when we were both younger, and we could have, had much more time together? And my wife, without missing a beat, looks at me and kind of chuckles and says, "Oh, I would have never dated you back then." And she's right. She's right. There was no way I had the maturity to be in a relationship with Cindy back in my 20s. She was just, for lack of a better term, more of an adult than me. And I made the comment to her, I said, yeah, and even if you did go out with me, I would have screwed it up in about 2 or 3 weeks, which we both agreed with. So here's the bottom line. I was not ready for her. I was not ready to experience the love that life did hold in store for me. And so I took a little bit more seasoning. And then the person that was always there, came into my life. And I was ready to experience love in an adult relationship, which sounds weird to say since I was in my 30s at the time and had already been married once before. But it was someone that I had to be ready for. And here's the irony of it all. My wife is a Methodist through and through. She was raised in the Methodist church. She was the first member's child baptized in the church she grew up in. She loves the Methodist church. She and I share the same values in terms of religion. We share the same values in terms of social justice. We think so much alike. I could not, if God would have said to me, "John, you create the perfect woman," I couldn't have come up with Cindy. And yet, there she was all along. And I am so thankful that I did not meet her when I was young. So the Holy Spirit functions in a similar way. You know, it functions that way. It's like we need to work on preparing ourselves for the work of Christ within us. And that's what the Holy Spirit does. And so as we do our work of preparation, the Holy Spirit is then able to work within us and through us. And we grow in spiritual maturity. In the Methodist tradition, we call this sanctification. We also use the phrase going on to perfection in love. But it's all a matter of me working to prepare myself. And as I do, and I don't know how the specifics of how this works, but as I do, one of two things happens. One, the Holy Spirit enters into me more, or two, I simply become more aware of the presence of the Holy Spirit that is already within me. The point is, though, that before I experience the power of the Holy Spirit, there has to be some preparation. So what did that all lead to, all of that emotional preparation and growth? Well, in 2002, in the course of one summer, I graduated from seminary. I got married. I got ordained. I moved. I started my first church. And at the end of that summer, our son was born. And so all of those happened, in the course of 3 months. Our son, I should note, is adopted, but he came to us, from the hospital. And that was also something that happened during our engagement, is his birth mother found us. And so what I'm saying is, the Holy Spirit kind of works the same way. Be careful how you prepare, because if you're ready, Holy Spirit's going to get up inside of you, and it's going to change you and transform you and make of you something that you probably couldn't have prepared yourself for and probably didn't imagine about yourself. The Holy Spirit is worth waiting on. It's worth preparing for. Hope you guys have a wonderful week, my friends. God bless.